Welcome to Walk Talk Vent.
I was stalked by an old man just now at the grocery store, so I'm in line behind him and he's getting bananas and milk. That's all he got. And I feel like he's weird. Like I feel weird vibes, and then suddenly he just stares at me and he just keeps staring at me. And I have so much going on that I'm just like, I am not in the mood to have a confrontation right now, so I ignore him. He pays for his shit. It's just bananas and milk again. So you get your shit and you leave, right? I paid for my shit since I'm after him, but I had a lot more shit and I had to bag it and take the cart somewhere else and then return the cart. So it took a long time. By the time I'm leaving the store, this man should have been done gone. You know what I mean? But he's waiting there in an empty register lane staring at me. So I just walk by this empty register lane out into the double doors and feel like he's following me. Turn around, he's following me. So I stop and get the hand sanitizer wipes, start wiping my hand, and they're coming out like in a whole ribbon row, and he grabs it so that I can break off the hand sanitizer wipes. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And then I'm wiping my hands and he just stands there. And I'm like, okay, so I leave and he follows me outside. And so I stop and I'm wiping off my hands outside of the double doors in the parking lot. And he's just waiting there next to me. He just stops. And I look at him and he looks at me. And then he just walks super slowly to his car. He puts his shit in his car. He stands there and stares at me, which, by the way, his car was right next to mine, literally next to mine. I don't know if he followed me there or what. I don't know where this fucking man came from. But then he gets in his car and he doesn't turn it on. It's like 2 to 3 minutes before he turns it on. Meanwhile, I'm being rained on and I'm just standing there staring. So I go inside and wait until he drives away. Like, what the fuck? If this happened to men, they would be like, what's up, bro? And they'd cause a scene. I don't think that men know that this shit happens to women all the time.
You know what's crazy? What if he's telling his buddies, "Yeah, I helped her. She was having trouble with the little Sanny wipe thing, right? And then I go out in my car, and I'm sitting there in my car, right? And this lady was staring at me for 3 minutes before she went back in the store." Okay, that's a bad example. It's obviously creepy when somebody stalks you. Ladies, if you're ever in this situation, go back in the store, talk to the manager, and see if they can give you an escort to your car.
This is a story of the time I got stalked by a man in my apartment complex. And we're going to be eating Chick-fil-A while we tell the story. Here we go. All right, on today's menu, we have the American #1 deluxe meal.
Okay, be honest. Who is thinking Chick-fil-A sounds delicious right now? Tell me your favorite Chick-fil-A sauce. I really like the honey mustard and the Polynesian. Tell me what you think.
You know, we got the fries, we got the barbecue sauce, the best sauce ever. Don't argue with your mama. And then we have the lemonade. So it was a regular schmegular Sunday. And I told myself, let me start my Sunday right after church. You know what? Let me go to the gym and get a quick workout in, you know? Thinking nothing of it. I'm just going to go work out. I go to the gym and I'm doing my workout. And I'm like, all right, great. Nobody's in here. Next thing you know, a man that looks familiar walks in. Mind you, I've encountered this man before, but he's never approached me. All right? Keep that in mind. Every other time I'll see this man at the gym, I'll see him watching me like predator type stare vibes. And I would always give a mean look, like I'm in the gym, bombastic side eye, literally. It's a face you can't miss. The face was mean, and he would look away. But this Sunday, I was in the gym by myself, so he had some type of courage that day. I'm at the squat rack. I move, right, because I see him watching me, and I'm doing squats. No, ma'am. Move to the bench to change my workout. This man sees me, approaches me to ask me if I'm done using the squat rack. I said, don't be a bozo. The bench is over here. The squat rack is all the way over there. What do you think? Do you see any weight on there? And I responded to him. I was like, yes, I'm done using it. You could take it. Then he had to say, oh, why are you always mad? Every time I see you look so mean, you never say hi. First,
Oh my God, the guy is old school flirting. He probably is a little creepy. I don't exactly know what she meant by the bench thing. If you guys do know, maybe you can clear it up by letting me know in the comments. It sounds to me like he was old school flirting.
I'm expecting the man to leave me alone and go use the squat rack that he asked about, but he didn't. He proceeds to say, what's your name? Mind you, I'm on the bench sitting. This man is like 6 foot plus, hovering over me. At this point, I feel like, yo, I'm by myself in the gym. Nobody else is here. What do I do? It was like peer pressure. I gave him my name. He was like, "You're so beautiful." He was like complimenting my body straight away. When I tell you, I was so uncomfortable. He was talking about your legs are so shiny. You so strong. Your body look nice. I want you to be my girlfriend. Girlfriend? He proceeds by saying things like he wants to marry me, this, that, and the third. At this point, I'm uncomfortable, but I'm not going to allow my face to show it. I don't want him to think he has authority over me. He goes by asking me for my phone number. He proceeds by asking me where I live. I said, I'm not going to tell you that. He said, why? It's not like I'm going to do anything bad. I'm not a bad person. I said, I don't know you. He's over here telling me where he lives. And I'm like, I don't care. If anything, I'll call the police on you. Well, I didn't say the police part to him, but that was me in my head. Basically peer pressured me to give him my number and called it right in front of my face. And I was thinking about putting a wrong number too. He makes me.
That one was pretty funny. I liked how that ended. She was thinking about giving a wrong number. Apparently, she gave the right number, and boy, can she sell a Chick-fil-A sandwich. That bad boy looks delicious. When he brought up her legs, for some reason, it reminded me of when Joe Biden talked about how the boys and girls used to love to touch his legs in the pool. Really creepy story.
So this is back in 2007, 2008 era. I had two small children at the time, and I had just broken up, or me and my baby's dad had just broken up, and I moved back to my parents' house. So at the time, it's been a few weeks since we broke up, and me and my girlfriend were like, let's go out and have some fun because I didn't have my kids that weekend. So we were like, what do we want to do? And my friends all, oh, I know this club. We should get all dressed up and go dancing at a club. So me and my friend got all dressed up and we went out for the night. We were at the club, we were having a good time, and we met these two guys. And the guy I met, his name was Caesar. And at first he was really nice, great conversation. At the end of the night, we ended up exchanging phone numbers, and then we left, and then we didn't hang out for the rest of the night. That next morning, I get a text at 7 a.m. Good morning, the very next morning. And I thought that was kind of weird because, like, I don't know. I just met you yesterday. So one of the first things I noticed about Caesar was that he constantly had to be texting and calling all the time. And we talked for a couple days at first before he asked me out on a date. And I said, sure, but I can't go out this weekend. I was like, I have my kids, but we can go out the following weekend. So we made a date to go out the following weekend. And he had told me, okay, let me pick you up. And I was, where do you live? And I was like, no, it's okay. I'll meet you there. Because again, I still didn't know him, So he tells me, okay, that's cool. He was like, and by the way, I'm treating you to the date, so don't worry about paying for it. And I'm like, okay, well, you asked me. So like, what you mean? And I didn't say anything about it. So he takes me to Olive Garden, which I'm a fan of Olive Garden. Olive Garden's good. So we go to Olive Garden, we get seated, and when we sit down and the waitress hands me the menu, he says, by the way, there's a $10 cap on the meal.
That's kind of corny, isn't it? A $10 cap on the meal. Oh my God, what a tacky thing to say. Look at the face that I paused her on. I gotta admit that there's probably one thing I like better than Chick-fil-A. It's a little Olive Garden. If you like their salad and breadsticks, let me know.
Okay, like, I didn't think anything of it too much really at first, and I was like, okay. And he's like, yeah, so don't buy something that's more than $10. That really should have been my second flag, but I digressed. Like, let's move on. So then I asked him because I felt at the moment like I couldn't order anything, and I said, can I get something to drink? And he was like, oh yeah, you can go ahead and get something to drink. He's all, but I'm not paying for beer. He was like, or any type of hard liquor. He's all, but if you want to order a wine, you can order a wine. And I was like, okay. And he's all, oh, and only 2 glasses of wine. He's like, that's it. And I was like, okay. So we're eating and the conversation is going okay. I mean, it's whatever. I'm a little annoyed because he, was trying to set restrictions on me, but we're talking and supposedly he owns his own shop, his own mechanic shop that is, specializing in different cars and things like that, foreign cars. So I'm like, I know he has money. Like, why is he tripping? So we finished the date and I didn't finish my meal all the way. I probably had this much left and I ordered the chicken parm and this much. And and then Ray just asked me, would you like to take a to-go bag? And I was like, no, that's okay. It's fine. And he goes, wait a minute, you're going to waste that food? And I was like, there's like literally this much. And he was like, I'll take it. I'll take her to-go bag. So we leave, we go our separate ways.
Holy moly, I was trying to pause that thing for 30 seconds in a row. So here's the funny thing. When I've gone on dates with girls, they want to take home the extra food and they want to order dessert half the time. So good for him.
He texted me that night, but I did not respond. So I called him the next day, and I called him because I don't feel it's right to text somebody like, hey, I'm just not vibing. That's just me. I wanted to call him and be like, hey, I had a good time, but we're just two different paths, and I just don't think that we're gonna see anything happen between us romantically. And to say he was pissed was an understatement, because he was like, I took you out, you seemed like you had a great time, and I just said it had nothing to do with where you took me. I was like,
God, apparently you have to triple click to pause these videos on TikTok. So check this out. Does she owe him anything? I don't think she owes him anything. He spent what, 20 bucks on the date? Get real, buddy. That's no big deal. Nothing to be pissed off, at least. But in the future, maybe she could pay the $20 for the date.
I love Olive Garden. I was like, but I just think we're not vibing. And he was like, all right, fine. So the next day he continues to text me. So he'll text me, he'll call me. So I started not responding to his texts and calls, because I was like, dude, even my regular friends and guy friends at the same time back in the day did not call me that much. So also during this time frame when we were talking before the date, he had found me on MySpace and added me on MySpace. And I was like, how did he find me on MySpace? Like, back in the day you needed to like have a username, and it's not like you can find people how you would find people today. So I'm dodging his calls, I'm dodging his text messages. And one day, my mom and dad are gone, and it's just me at my house. My kids were gone. I think they were with their dad. And the doorbell rings, and I'm like, okay, who is it? And it's Caesar. And I was like,
That is scary. Ladies, if you've ever had that happen to you, let me know down in the comments. And guys, sometimes girls and other guys can stalk you. If you've ever had that, let me know. That sounds scary.
holy shit, what is he doing at my house? How does he know where I live? I opened the door and I'm like, hi. And he was like, you're not answering my text messages or my phone calls. And I was like, yeah, I just really don't think we should talk anymore. I was like, I don't know how you got my address, and that kind of scares me. And you just showing up to my house kind of scares me. And he tells me that he is my neighbor. He lives down the street from my parents' house, maybe about 2 blocks over on the same street. And I was like, holy crap. Like, oh my gosh. And he was like, I've been wanting to meet you for a while, and it was just fate that we ran into each other. I told him it wasn't fate. I told him that I'm no longer interested in speaking with him romantically. He could just leave. And so finally he ended up leaving. But that didn't stop there. So
sometimes things can be a little bit scary there. Let's see how this ends up here.
you want to know what this guy did? He hacked into my MySpace. He sent a message to all my friends saying that I'm no longer single, that I'm in a serious relationship, and that if I was talking to you, it's over. And we would no longer be talking.
Guys, I have another great stalker story for you. I want you to grab your shoes. Let's go for a walk. Good morning, Venters. Question: have any of you ever had to deal with a stalker? Or even maybe scarier, have any of you ever had a son or a daughter or family member that had to deal with a stalker? There's something about the internal thoughts and DNA of stalkers that's just kind of freaky, because it seems like even when you give these people restraining orders from a court, a lot of times those things don't scare people off. The purpose of the restraining order is so that if they're caught stalking you again, they can actually be taken to jail. But with some of these judges around the country, they give such light bonds that, again, that's more of a nuisance that could potentially upset your stalker even more. Sometimes stalkers start off as friends, sometimes they're enemies right off the bat, right? And then other times, they're complete strangers that you have no idea how they even found you and what the heck their deal is. Usually on this show, we talk about how the elite and rich people live behind gated communities, but when it comes to stalkers, even money in gated communities doesn't always keep you safe. Nia Taylor Clark owns a store called Blacklit in Farmers Branch, Texas. Blacklit is a store that specializes in selling books from Black authors. Now, I don't know if it's because of laws in Texas that are protecting folks that haven't officially been found guilty of stalking or not, but this headless man right here, or I should say right here, this headless man right here is the man that's guilty of stalking her. And Blacklit, the store, is actually connected to an apartment complex where he lives. Nia Taylor Clark went ahead and got a restraining order against this guy, but unfortunately, despite knowing where he lives and the fact that he stalks her at her store all the time, cops have not been able to locate him in order to serve him with his restraining order. In order to get out of this, Nia decided to close down her store and move. Now, is she doing the right move by running away? I think so, because if the cops can't protect you, and if there's nothing that can be done until after the process of serving him these papers for the restraining order, then her life is in peril. And no matter how wonderful her book is, because if you look, her book looks pretty darn neat and cool, it sounds to me like the smartest move for her is just to go ahead and move. Now, one thing that you're not going to hear anywhere, but probably from my lips, is that I'm kind of impressed by Nia, because I think a lot of people would have tried to find a couple of nearby tough guys to kind of have a little vigilante justice session with this stalker. Nia's better than that. She wants to move, and she wants to open up Blacklit in another place, somewhere that's safer. So check this out. Once again, this guy lives in a nearby apartment that's actually attached to her store, and he comes down routinely, walking back and forth across the window, intimidating customers, and a couple of times he's even trapped Nia and various people in certain parts of her store, like he did one day behind her, where she was stuck behind her register. They've tried to reason with this guy, they've tried to call the police, but like usual, nothing seems to happen. Not only did Nia close up shop, but she ended up moving clear across the country. So in other words, there's something that's so freaky about this guy. She felt like her best move, considering she has a little boy, is just to move to safety. And I don't blame her. Her final thought is, this is not goodbye, it's a see you later. If any of you guys have ever had dreams ruined from a stalker, please share your story, or at least drop us a line so we know that she's not the only one. You know what's interesting about this stalking scenario is it kind of affects all aspects of life. Whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're male or female, whether you're straight, gay, or trans, nearly every segment of life has had a situation where people have felt the effects of stalking. Sometimes stalkers are successful not only in stalking you, but sometimes they end up killing the people that they're stalking. A lot of times states will tell you that there's not really anything they can do until people do bad stuff. So it's one of those things where I think Nia might be making the right decision, because it's better to move and hopefully be safe rather than deal with somebody like this. At Chris Walker 1170 says, she did right. It's sad because her bookstore looks dope. You know, Chris, I agree with you. Bookstores are kind of a dying dinosaur in the world that we live in. But if you can have the one or two in a choice part of town and they're popular, especially considering a lot of bookstores end up putting coffee shops inside, I mean, it just sounds like a real sad deal altogether. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody else moves in there and creates a Starbucks or something. I find it interesting that Nia says this guy is being jazzed up by alcohol, because it seems like with a lot of stalkers, they're not necessarily drunk or on anything. This is one of those things that for whatever reason, sometimes people have a little bit of a mental illness. They see somebody that they're obsessed over, and instead of moving on with their lives, for some reason they just want to bug the shit out of these people. And for whatever reason, in our society, we kind of turn a blind eye to this stuff unless it directly affects us. What's interesting about stalking is that so many of us have dealt with it at one time or another in our lives that it's one of those things where empathy is kind of easy to come by in this case. Because like I said, I'd be willing to bet there's a good percentage of you that have dealt with that, and some of you might be dealing with a stalker as we speak. All right, that woman's jogging. I would recommend walking for her. She's probably going to jog for another 10 seconds and then call it quits. Let's see. Keep going. Don't stop. You got this. All right, maybe she's going to go a little bit longer. That would be hilarious if she stopped right now while I stopped looking. Hey, quick question. What do you guys think should happen to people that are accused of stalking? Obviously, we want the accused to be dealt with, but at the same time, when you're accused of something, it doesn't necessarily mean you're guilty of something. This guy could, in theory, be a completely normal, great guy, and then when he gets alcohol in him, he could be a complete tyrant. And if somebody goes on a binge where all of a sudden, instead of being sober, they're drunk for, let's say, 2 or 3 consecutive weeks, I could see how you could think that this is a permanent stalker, when in reality, it's just a drunk, you know, that for some reason wants to bully a store. One of the things Nia mentioned was that not only does he bully her, but he also bullies the customers. He'll actually walk across the front of the store window in a menacing way, staring in at customers while they're checking out books. I don't know about you, but if I went there once and saw this, I would kind of chalk it up to a weird guy. But if I went there multiple times and this guy was there all the time, I don't know about you, but I would quit going to that bookstore. So even if she decided to toughen it out and protect herself with, let's say, a gun or something, the reality is I think that bookstore the reality is I think that bookstore is probably going to fail when you have something like this working against you. This is probably worse than having a guy that's pooping outside of your door every day. When you have this menace to society, it's just too bad we don't have laws that can kind of get him out of there. At ATL Songbird 6084 says, nah, show his face so we can see that creep. I think the only reason they didn't show his face, because she had pictures of the guy, is probably because he hasn't technically hasn't been found guilty of stalking. Either that or they just want to protect his identity, but I think before they show his face, he has to be found guilty. I could be wrong. If you're a citizen of Texas and you know why they're blurring his face, let me know. But here's the headless horseman right here. What do you think of him? AGL 5132 says he lived in the nearby building, but police couldn't find him? ? There should have been some info on his rental apartment, his job, his family, etc. It doesn't sound like they tried too hard. Yeah, here's the thing that's kind of weird about this, AGL. What I find weird is that according to the story, she was kind of being stalked by this guy on the regular. It seems to me like you could some way, somehow, ask for the police to send down some sort of police presence where they could maybe be in regular street gear, not necessarily in their uniform. And maybe while they're in their street clothes, they could just kind of pretend to be one of the patrons of the store. It seems to me like if you have a pretty consistent stalker, that you should be able to find him literally while he's stalking the store. But for whatever reason, even though he lives in the adjacent apartment complex, apparently they can't find him. Seems really kind of freaky. By the way, do you really need to serve somebody with the restraining order if there's proof multiple times that he's stalking your store? Because she must have had, a dozen or more pictures of this guy interrupting, different book readings and things that they were doing in the store. I know everyone at the home is going to say, of course he has to be served his restraining order in order for it to go into effect. But it seems like they should have something out there to protect people where police officers aren't able to serve these people. Guys, this next comment was a really good comment because I wasn't thinking along these lines. But imagine if there was a competitor bookstore. And imagine if the place where Blacklit was located, imagine if that was actually the best area in the whole city for a bookstore to potentially be successful and thrive. Speak Steph says at someone, quote unquote, someone with power and influence and money wanted her prime retail space. Pay attention to who moves into that space once she moves out. So I kind of joked earlier that it's going to be replaced with a Starbucks, and who knows, Starbucks seem to pop up everywhere, right? But the reality is, what Speak Steph says kind of sounds interesting. What if that bookstore is replaced by another bookstore? And if it is replaced by another bookstore and that bookstore owner ends up being super successful, it does kind of make you scratch your head and wonder, could somebody purposely scare another business owner out of town? And why did she want to move across the country rather than just locate to another part of the city? It sounds to me like something really kind of got into her and scared her and made her want to, get the heck out of there. So Speak Steph, I hope you're wrong, but wouldn't that be really intriguing if you found out that this was kind of part of a used bookstore war between her and someone else? And if you are rich and powerful, how easy would it be to go to a couple of tough guys in the neighborhood, a couple thugs, pay them a couple $100, and hey, all you have to do is drink some liquor, get a little fired up, and go bother people down at the bookstore? If that was all you had to do and someone's willing to pay you hundreds of dollars to do it, wow, I could see that happening. If you guys think that there's at least a chance that this could be kind of a situation of a competitor trying to scare her away, let me know. At Victoria says she's very intelligent. That decision probably saved her life. Victoria, here's the crappy thing. I hate that she had to leave. I hate that she had to abandon her dreams. I love that she's looking at it as a temporary thing, not forever. So she has a game plan to come back and do it the right way in the future without having to deal with people like this. But Victoria, I think you're right. I think she might have spared not only her life, but the life of her little boy. And the truth is, there are some things that are just so much more important even than money in your career. And that would be your safety and the safety of your loved ones and, your family members. So again, I think this is so crappy that this poor lady had to deal with this. But at the same time, Nia, if it means that you're alive and well to witness your child's upbringing and you get to see him grow up and go off to college and get married and have grandbabies for you, then that's a blessing in and of itself. Thank goodness she chose to get out sooner rather than later, because these are things that if you delay, you never know. That stalker might be planning on purchasing weapons. He or she might be planning on doing something tomorrow. So therefore, get out of there today. I think this is awful. I think this is one that I can't really blame on the judges and stuff, because technically in this country, we are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. So let's play devil's advocate. What if this guy was just the town drunk? And what if she just has a big ego and didn't want her business to fail because it's not selling books? Maybe she just wanted a perfect excuse. But I don't really think it's that, guys. I don't think we make up stalking stories just to get out of town so we don't look like a failure. And from what I understand, it sounds like her bookstore wasn't a failing bookstore. It sounds like it was doing rather well. The bookstores that we have out here, they look like they're surviving, but they don't necessarily look like they're thriving. The way to make a bookstore succeed is to have a little coffee and some snacks that they can actually purchase. And if you go to a nearby bookstore, you'll probably notice that the successful ones have just that. They have a setup where people can drink some coffee, people can have a bagel or a donut while they're reading their book. Some people don't like reading on a Kindle or on their cell phone. Some people love to actually hold a book in their hand. So we know that there's a market for this stuff. And I have a feeling if Blockbuster Video ever came back, and I don't mean came back in full force, but if there was ever one or two video stores that opened up, I have a feeling that just from nostalgia alone, at least for a couple of years, I have a feeling they would have a lot of people renting movies. Do you guys miss Blockbuster and Hollywood Video and the Warehouse? I know you guys are thinking, the Warehouse, I haven't heard about that store in 30 years. Yeah, I think the Warehouse went out of business around the turn of the century. And if you're too young to remember, the Warehouse was basically a place, just like Blockbuster Video and just like Hollywood Video, where you could rent a movie. And I don't know about you, but right when Blockbuster Video went out of business, I kind of stopped renting movies. Renting movies used to be almost as big as going to the movies. And don't get me wrong, I know that we can stream now and buy things on pay-per-view, but it's really not the same. Speaking of stalking, I want you guys to imagine how the donuts feel when you start eyeballing them. Some of us are stalking the donuts and the cereal aisle like a crazy deranged stalker. What we need to do is we need to slow down on the sugar, increase on the water, and we need to start a walking routine with you right away. The donuts are about to call the police and serve you with a restraining order. You know, I bet you there's a few of you that are thinking, well, wait a minute, Jesse, why doesn't she just pay for a little bit of a security guard presence? When you're opening up a new business, you know as well as I do, you're hoping money comes in just so you can reinvest it in your business and hopefully earn a profit. If you're instantly having to hire and pay somebody 20 or 25 bucks an hour to be armed security, it just sounds like a big pain in the butt for one person that's ruining it for the whole store and for all the patrons. It would be really nice if this woman did have a couple of big brothers or a couple of guys in her family that could kind of protect her, but at the same time, it's not like people just have nothing better to do than watch out for a drunk coming to the local bookstore, you know? So again, this is one of those situations where it could affect any of us that ever have a dream of opening up a small business. You probably never ever think of something like this happening when you're coming up with plans on how to make your business successful. Nobody and their mother ever thinks, hey, I need to watch out for John down the street. He's gonna drink and come over and bully us. But that's the problem with alcohol. It takes people that normally would be very nice people, and it kind of turns them into this horrible creature, in some cases, not all. So I imagine some of you guys are going to be watching the football game. I always recommend you put on your shoes, get outside, take a little half-hour walk. That way, if you end up drinking a soda or two during the game, that walk will at least offset some of the calories. Remember, when you're drinking soda, it has a tendency to make you crave sweets and other foods. So make sure that you kind of keep it limited. And if you can ditch that soda for something that's a little bit less sweet, like Kool-Aid or Powerade, that might be a better move, than just drinking a 6-pack of soda on your own. And if you have potato chips, put a couple chips in a bowl and eat the chips in the bowl. Whatever you do, don't take a whole bag of Doritos with you on the couch, because what'll happen is you'll lose track of how many chips you're eating, and before you know it, you've eaten the whole bag. And that's how we gain weight, people. It's usually not because of a little snack here or there. It's usually because we end up binging on things like chips and donuts while we're watching a movie or the video or a football game. A video game. There are people out there that watch people playing video games. That sounds like a sad state of existence, doesn't it? Holy moly. I hope you guys have a most wondrous day. Make today the day that you go out and do some extra credit. Every half hour you walk burns about 150 calories. Why not make today a Sean Ayton day? Go walk 5 or 6 miles. You'll feel great, and you'll really get into your walking routine quicker than ever that way. Have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow.